Okay, so a recap. We went over the beginning. We went over form and void, meaning clay or moldable substance. We went over light in verse 3. We went over divide, waters. We just did, and now it's brought forth. Brought forth really starts at 3, verse 3 here. Let me show you the definition in Strong's here. To exist, right? To be or become. To come into being. To happen, to occur. Right? So we have a understanding of how the light got there, right? But before we get into that, let's get into what the earth did, right? In verse 11, it says, "And God said, let the earth bring forth grass." Now, did the earth birth grass? It seems the substance that the grass was made of is dirt, right? So the earth, from the earth, was brought forth grass, right? And it was the herb yielding seed, right? So, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. So we have a law here. An apple tree will bring forth an apple. A pear tree is going to bring forth a pear. Tomatoes is going to bring forth tomatoes. So we have a law, right? And the world wants to break that law. And they've just discovered this law is true. That, God's law here is spoken right. In verse 12, "And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good." Right? Now, was all animals brought forth from the dirt? See, that's a question, right? Well, let's go to 20, right? And we'll see, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life." The fowl, right? That may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. "And God created great whales and living creatures that moveth, which the waters brought forth." Now, we have if the waters birthed them, right? Then we have here where it says God created great whales, right? But he created them from the substance of water. So, brought forth, the waters was the substance, and the creation that God created was the whales that moved, the whales, the fish, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters and the seas, and let fowls multiply the earth." Okay, in verse 24, we can see, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures after his kind." cattle, creepy things, beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so. So we know by the example of the water that God created great whales from the water, that God created animals from the earth, or the dust or dirt, right? But the dirt brought forth, you see, it was the substance that the animals were made out of, right? And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind. And we see it again, that a turtle ain't going to someday become a dog. That each one, they might have a different size, shape, colors, attitude, but it all came from its same kind. 26, and God said, let us make man in our image. Okay, what is he talking about? God is spirit. God is light. What image could God be talking about here? What is the image of God, right? And we can go to Colossians 15 here, right? And this is speaking of Christ, and it's saying that Christ is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn, or the first brought forth, because he was not born, of every creature. He was brought forth, right? What was he brought forth from? When man was brought forth from the earth, cows was brought forth from the earth, whales and birds. Well, now, what was this light brought forth from? Was it spirit? Was it God? See, that's why this becomes very important, right? So, we were brought forth from the dusk. Whales and birds was brought forth from water. The light was brought forth from God. Are you dirt? Yep. Is a whale water? Yeah. Is Jesus God? Yes. That's, that's the way that Genesis chapter 1 is trying to get people to understand. That's why brought forth is so important, right? So, 26, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our own likeness, right? Our there is plural. And let them have dominion over fish of the sea, so the waters, and over the fowl of the air, the birds, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creepeth thing that creepeth upon the earth. 27. So God created man in his own image. What would that look like? Jesus. Christ. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them, right? So, now wait a minute. What was the female brought forth from? Male. You'll see that in chapter 2, that God took and put the man to sleep and caused him to fall into a deep sleep, and took one of his ribs, and from that rib Right? So, what is the substance that the female was brought forth from? The male. The rib of the male. The bone of my bone, blood of my blood. You see, it's in this correlation. It's so that man would have a connection to what he is from. And this is God's design. And it was so that we would have this understanding, a natural understanding of how things were brought forth from. If you put a fish on land, it dies. It's not made to live on land. If you put man in waters, he'll survive for so long, and then he'll give out. And he'll perish too. He's just not made for it. That's why we have to be reborn in the Spirit. The flesh cannot dwell with God. It's impossible. We were not made for that in the flesh. But in the Spirit, through the rebirth of Jesus Christ, you are born in the Spirit. And that Spirit can exist with God. Probably went too deep, didn't mean to. But I just wanted to bring, to see the importance of brought forth and how important it is to God. And why did He create Genesis chapter 1? There's a great reason why.